Hi, welcome to the RestoreLiberty.us podcast. I'm here today with Melissa Powers. Melissa, thank you so much for meeting with us. It's going to be great to hear some details. Thank you for showing.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, George. It's really an honor and a delight to be able to speak with you and to share a little bit about me, but also my mission for the office and what we're hoping Hamilton County will come and fall down this November on the election for safety.
Excellent, excellent. You were at our meeting a couple months ago, gave a fantastic speech, and so I wanted to give you a chance to get those more details out there. So let's start a little bit with your background. You're a local Cincinnati person, been here your whole life?
That's correct. I was born and raised here. I grew up in Mount Airy, went to UC undergrad, UC Law School. I got married. I'm married. I have 4 children, 5 grandchildren. They're all here in Cincinnati.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's why Cincinnati and Hamilton County is a very important place. We want to keep it special, keep it safe for the future.
What's interesting, you mentioned grandchildren. I just have to tell the story. When I was just speaking in front of crowds about children, it was okay. But the moment I knew I was going to be a grandfather really changed my outlook. And so when I approach and see others approaching this election this year, it really feels like the year we have to do something for our grandchildren. Are you feeling that same pull?
Well, I don't know if you know, but I have 31 years of experience in the criminal justice system. When I graduated from law school, I went right into the Hamilton County Prosecutor's office. I finished my career in a year and a half ago, and I was planning on retiring so that I could spend more time with my grandchildren. The opportunity or the position of the prosecutor's office came up because Jeters went on to the Ohio Supreme Court. So I was asked to serve again. I had to think very quickly. I only had 23 days before I was going to be sworn in, and realize I'm here because I love Cincinnati. This is my home. I have a passion to serve. If I did not answer the call for this opportunity to run the prosecutor's office, I really felt that I would regret it. If this office falls into the wrong hands, the soft on crime advocates, the George Soros type prosecutors, our city would go into ruin, demise, and decay. We've seen it around the country. We know those policies fail everywhere, and I'm here doing the job because I'm going to fight to keep Hamilton County a great place to live, raise a family, have a business. We want us to continue to prosper, and that's how important this office is to our community.
I agree 100%. You are currently our only line of defense in the entire county as far as, 10 years ago, we had the clerk's office, the prosecutor's office, and nearly every judge position. 10 years later now, it's the exact opposite, and we're fighting this problem, and which is why your background and experience is so important. We're fighting the problem now of judges who have never been in a courtroom, a sheriff who can't keep her car. I mean, it's just craziness right now. How many years have you been working within the judicial system here in Hamilton County?
Well, I started in 1991. I was an assistant prosecutor. I began my career in the appellate division. And back then, you didn't do research by computer. You actually went to the library and found it in books. I was one of 5 women that were in the office that were litigators. But my job at that point, when I began, for the first 9 months of my career there, was in the appellate division arguing in front of the First District Court of Appeals. I would go and watch the senior lawyers, the more mature lawyers on the murder cases in the courtroom, and an issue would come up in the courtroom on maybe an evidence issue, whatever, and then I would say, I got that, and I would run up and get to the law library. It was in the same building as the top floor of the courthouse, get the answer, case law, bring it down to them. Eventually, they start asking me to argue because it was a little bit complicated, or they can't get it as quickly because we needed the answer fast in the courtroom. So they asked me, you need to start litigating. They went to my boss, who was Joe Jeters at the time, and said, put her in the courtroom. We need her there more than we need her in the Court of Appeals. So then I went to juvenile tried cases, municipal court, tried jury trials there, and then went to felony court. So I moved pretty rapidly. I ended my career in the prosecutor's office at that time in 1998, and I was running the municipal court division, training new lawyers coming in. But I tried many jury trials while while I was in the prosecutor's office. Murder cases, complicated cases, serious cases. One of my I had a lot of cases that got a lot of publicity, but my most famous one was a serial killer case that I got involved with and worked with Cincinnati homicide detectives, and started communicating with the suspect, their prime suspect, on a double homicide that occurred in 1980. So cold case. They always believed it was Joseph Paul Franklin was the person that did it, and they could not get enough information in order to bring charges and a conviction. They wanted a confession, and so I start writing to the serial killer, developing a rapport with the serial killer, went to death row, met with him, and he confessed to those 2 murders plus 4 others in other jurisdictions. So that's when that was in 97. The trial was in 98. And in 98, I was the assistant chief. I went on and left the office and went into private practice. And I did litigation every day. It was a litigation firm. Myself, a solo practitioner. And I did public defender work as well. So I did that for about 7 years. And then in 2006, the Governor Taft at the time, asked me to be a judge. There was a vacancy on the municipal court bench and asked me to take that spot. And so I did, and then ran 3 successful campaigns after that. Was there for 10 years. While I was in municipal court, I started the first Veterans Treatment Court in the state of Ohio. And that was a result of what I was seeing in the courtroom, Iraqi veterans coming back, self-medicating their trauma. And I knew we needed to do more because our traditional form of probation wasn't working with them. What I mean is services at the end. I wanted services in the beginning. They're in crisis now. Let's help them now. There was then in 2016, and I was thrilled. I loved what I was doing in municipal court. And then I was asked to step in and help out in juvenile court. It was the aftermath of Tracy Hunter, and there was a low morale over there, and they needed a judge to help. And I was happy to take on that position because I could take what I learned from working with veterans, trauma, and translate that to children, and because a lot of children are involved in the criminal justice system because of trauma. And so, again, front load our services. I started the assessment center up in Clifton, and this was where if a child is in crisis, families, police officers, low-level type offenses, they bring the child there. They get behavioral health assessment, self-harm assessments. They offer, services for the child, but also the family. How do you deal with this? What can we do to help you? And then you get the right services to the right child at the right time. No longer it's just a program that we put a child in at the end. It was directing services specific to the child. It is very successful. I just saw in the paper recently that they're attributing the low violence arrest and criminal activity with juveniles is because of that assessment center. So it's early intervention.
Well, it's extremely interesting. I mean, your experience is checking all of them. The dream team boxes. You've done prosecutions, you've done defense, you've done being the judge, and what's interesting is you've taken a very proactive approach to it. Instead of just focusing on the cases, you're focusing on the people and what is it that they need to get better, to better themselves. That's a unique approach. I don't think I've heard that very often. It's kudos to you to look beyond, hey, this is a case. Is it guilty, not guilty, and instead look at the person. And I just find that amazing. So you've been doing this for a long time. You've hit the boxes of basically anything around, including the box of being self-employed, which we always look for people that have signed the front of the check and not just the back.
Exactly.
So all of this experience has culminated to now you're in a position to make a huge difference in the city, in the county. What is your primary goal for this election, and why are you going after trying to continue this effort?
Well, I want to continue the mission of the office. The mission of the office is to make sure that the victims have a voice, but also that the community is safe. And part of that includes making sure there's accountability to if somebody does commit a crime. Now, accountability can take many different forms. It could be consequences. If you're a violent offender, there should be appropriate consequences for violent offenders, and violent offenders should be taken off the streets to protect others. But another approach, which is using that great compassion, trying to help people get redirected out of the criminal justice system and provide services and help. It's, again, like you said earlier, it's focusing on the individual, but also looking at the broader problem. And it's not just I'm going in and punching a time clock. We're really trying to make a difference. And that's what I do and have done throughout my career, and I've got the actions to prove it. I'm moving the office forward in a lot of different ways. One is last year, within months of me taking office, I started an elder justice unit to focus on, we've always focused on in the criminal justice system. We know that children are the most vulnerable. What people tend to forget are seniors, elderly people are often targets of criminals, and most often it's financial exploitation. They want to get their money.
Right.
And so the elder justice unit is doing not only internal work, if they're abused or neglected, we want to make sure we prosecute and hold the people accountable. And it could even be a family member that is causing as the perpetrator. But we also want to make sure that I know when thinking back with my parents, how often they're approached by scammers and they don't know what to do. They're very trusting. They've worked their entire life. They're part of the depression area where you save, and sacrifice. And so they have money that they have, and most seniors are in this position, that they have money that makes them very, very a good target for somebody that wants to take advantage of them.
Well, and there's so many ways now with electronics and email and social media. It's a huge problem.
So we do outreach. We teach seniors how to identify a scam, how to identify the red flags, what to do. We have a helpline that we instituted. We meet with seniors. I've got an entire team, investigators, team specialists, prosecutors assigned to this unit to make sure. So if a family member, you're saying, my brother is taking advantage of my mother, and the police are saying, well, there's nothing we can do. It's a family matter. It's a civil matter. Come see us. My helpline is 513-946-SCAM, and that's out there. And we have a family that come and meet with our prosecutors, our investigators, the specialists. Not only take the report down, we get that information. This is what we're seeing in the community. There's a monthly newsletter they can sign up for.
Oh, wow.
So all of this got started within months of me taking over. The second thing that I've been working on is updating our technology. So often we have motions that are coming in from the defense to take apart a criminal conviction on the basis that discovery, for example, wasn't provided. Well, the discovery rules have been changed, first of all, from 20 years ago, and they're much more open and liberal than they were back then. So it's not that the prosecutor's office did anything wrong, it's just that the rules have changed, and the courts could be affirming. There's a jury finds the individuals, 12 people find somebody guilty of murder, for example. It goes to the Court of Appeals. 3 judges review that and affirm the decision. It goes in front of the Supreme Court. Another panel of judges review it. It could even potentially go into federal court on motions that way too. But the defense attorneys today can file a motion in front of a trial judge, even though it's been reviewed. We had one case, a death penalty case. I believe it was 18 different judges reviewed the case, and we have a trial judge that set that conviction aside and granted a new trial.
Wow.
If we have technology that can track our discovery, even 20 years from now, they'll be able to see, yes, it was provided. No, there's nobody alive to say one way or the other,
right.
Was it provided or not provided. Now I'm trying to get technology to get that so we don't have these problems going forward. But it also helps the trial lawyers be more efficient in the courtroom. We know if the police officers turned evidence over, it's all logged in this new technology. So I've been working really hard. It's going much slower than I would like. This has been going on for a year, so I was told November was my timeline. It looks like I'm not going to make it at November.
As a software developer, I know exactly what you're talking about. It always takes longer.
Much longer than I would like. So having patience on that. Another thing that I'm working with the police department and the sheriff's office is we have 460 unsolved unsolved murders. So we're working, as you know, in 1997, I did the 17-year-old cold case. So we have cold cases, and there's a group, Mothers of Murdered Children. So we're working with them in conjunction with the Cincinnati Police Department. Because of personnel, they're 200 officers short. They're pulling people from some of these units to get out onto the streets. And so what has suffered has been the cold cases. So I'm working to ways to shore that up, revive it. I have 4 retired homicide detectives, Cincinnati homicide detectives, on my staff. We're offering their services to the police departments to keep this going so that we can resolve these cases and bring justice to the victims and their family. So those are a couple of my initiatives that I'm working on. And it's just the day in and day out of every prosecutor. They're fighting so hard. They are warriors. They're working against some of these very soft on crime judges or judges with not much experience. We're fighting very, very hard so that justice is provided to the community. To also give the word out to criminals that they're not emboldened, that
Right.
nobody's.
There's no threat if there's no threat.
Right, exactly. There's no deterrent if there's not consequences, and so that's why we have to have this all in place. And you need somebody that's running this office that not only has leadership, compassion, but also understands what's happening day in and day out. I know this office that I'm in. I've worked there, and I always have loved the office. It's a great team effort. Very dedicated public servants that work there. From staff to attorneys, the attorneys are some of the best lawyers, trial lawyers in the community, and they're often picked off by law firms.
Right.
And so that can be enticing to somebody wanting to meet or need to make more money for your family.
Well, thank you for all of that background. We're going to take a quick break here. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit more about what's happening in the county right now. In the meantime, you can go to restoreliberty.us. We'll have information on Melissa and her website and how you can help. We'll be back in just a minute. Thanks.